thank you so much to Rite Aid for hosting us, and Brand Innovators, as always, for bringing together such a wonderful community of marketers. I'm Caitlin Leven, VP of Sales at Swoop. Had a career in this industry for over a decade now in TV, connected TV, and programmatic advertising, spanning all verticals. So I think this conversation is really helpful, I think, to kind of all collectively get together cross verticals, pharma being very kind of, I would say, insular as a community. And so I'm excited to have this conversation, and I'm thrilled to be sitting here with Josh Palau, VP of Performance Marketing at Pfizer. Josh has had an expansive career, and I don't want to speak for him. I want him to speak about his experience, because I think it's really interesting, especially as we talk about the title of this fireside chat today, in housing excellence, right? This is no longer a trend. It's something that we're actively doing. Shout out Bayer. I know you're here somewhere. So
Ryan Gang, stay for Ryan's thing. It's at 3:00. I'll tell you a story about the best LinkedIn email I ever got from someone who told me they were going to be my next biddable manager, and that was Ryan. I took a picture of it today. Just out of the blue, I'm going to be your next biddable manager. And he was, actually. And he's quite good at it.
Yep. So, Josh, can you talk to us a little bit about your background?
I work at Pfizer. I've been there about 2 months now. The shortest version of my history that I could tell is I started in sales, internet advertising, when it was super easy. So all you sellers in the audience, there was a time which was very easy. It's not easy anymore. And then I moved agency side to Razorfish, where I spent 6 years, and I see a bunch of people here. Not Emery, sorry. Well, you are our intern, which is just insane. But I started there. I was there for 6 years. Then went to Comcast, J&J, Bayer. Had a short stop at PhD doing some consulting there as a chief media officer, and then landed at Pfizer. So I always make the same joke. It's a lot of small companies, no politics, very easy to change. But for some reason, I keep going back, and I don't know why, but I do, and it must be something good about it.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you a little bit about a decision that Pfizer made recently, and that is to appoint their first global CMO, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking in the audience, because I tell people that story. Oh, hey, Susan. I know you're going to be here. Hi, how are you? I tell people that story, and they all go like, they all do this face, and they're like, they did? Yeah, like we've never had a CMO before, and the decision was to bring one in, focus more on the Pfizer brand, because it was just basically the focus they wanted to go with. I mean, I think if you think of the history of pharma, it is a lot about the products themselves and the disease states that they manage. So there is some degree of like, hey, with enough TV and enough of efficacy, like you're going to win. And so, but the thought going forward was, Pfizer actually has a very good history of doing programmatic and targeting and audience-based buying, but in 2019, the privacy police said stop all of that, so that we've kind of been dormant for a little bit. And so Drew came on board to basically help revitalize that, and he's brought in a gaggle of people who, frankly, like from all different backgrounds, very non-pharma backgrounds, just to kind of help speed that process.
Yeah. I think it's a time of change and transformation.
I noticed you had cards. I didn't bring cards.
It's okay. I think you know this stuff.
Okay, good.
I think we both know this stuff, right? Talking about transitioning to a model of in housing, right, and in housing your media. That we joked that like how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? That's not an overnight journey. And I know, like you said, you're 2 months in.
Yeah.
So what does the next 6 months for you look like?
Yeah. So. Well, there's two parts of it. So my day job is leading all the performance media channels. So it's all the paid channels, including connected TV and SEO, because SEO is where I sort of started, and it always ends up under my group. But on the other side of that is when Pfizer made the decision to move to Publicis, they did announce right off the bat that they're going to be bringing activation in-house. No timelines, no budget set. So there was some degree of like, this is nice because it's like sort of wide open. So I don't know how much Ryan's going to talk about Bayer, so I don't want to steal any of his thunder. But the short version at Bayer was we had a moment where we had this point where 4 years of decline, we needed to figure out a way to save some money and to also be more effective in digital. We pitched this plan, got rid of our agency, and went with Mighty High, which is sort of a transition agency. They're part of S4 if you don't know who they are. So there was like definitives like, hey, by X amount of time, and in 2 years, we're going to save X amount of dollars by reducing staff by Y. And that was like, okay, so then everybody was on board with having to line up with that. With Pfizer, it's a little different, but yet like still really exciting, because we have some framework initially of like, okay, here's what you're getting to start with, and then you have to kind of build as you go and decide what you want to do. There's no I'm going to say this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. There's no world in which we're pulling everything away from Publicis. There's too much that we're investing in them. There's too much that they've done. You don't do a giant global review, get rid of your 25-year agency, move to Publicis, onboard them in 5 months just to get rid of them in 2 years. Like, that does not happen. But what does happen is you think about the things that you can bring in to be closer to the business, to be more aligned with the goals, to move more quickly. So right now, the first 6 months are looking to bring in search. So we're hiring a director of search. We're going to bring that in-house. Publicis is being wonderful partners about helping us through that. And then next will probably be social, and I don't know about programmatic and the rest, but they're all on the roadmap somewhere. And I think it's just a question of like how much of Pfizer's tolerance, which I think there is a tolerance for it, but there's a lot of things when you bring things in-house that you're not aware of when you're on the brand side. And that's the thing, that they're just understanding, like owning contracts, paying partners, like just something you don't normally do when you're there.
Infrastructure.
Yeah. Like when we laid it out at Bear, it was like, hey, so I'm going to give you a contract from Google. You can't do anything but sign it. Well, can I look? No, you can't even change the date. You just got to sign the contract. There's no redlining. There's no back and forth. There's no negotiating. It's it. And so, but when you have a savings number that we threw out there, you sign it. So.
You must have known what my next question was going to be, because that dovetailed very nicely.
I don't. What is it?
Yeah, well, I think, when we talk about in-housing, one of the things I think oftentimes what we're laser focused on is, right, efficiency. Yeah. This is how we're going to drive efficiencies. But I would argue that's likely like a byproduct and not the main objective. So when Pfizer started to think about this, right, bringing media in-house and doing this, in their own walls, what were some of the key objectives they were looking to accomplish?
Yeah, so, well, there's a couple of things. Yes, the efficiency, there's always efficiency somewhere in there, but it wasn't the basis of it. And just for a quick side note, I told the story about when I was at Bayer. There was a guy there who's there for 20 years at Shearing Plow, and then another 10 years at Bayer. This is Ryan, this is Fred. And so not the person you think is this champion of in-housing, because he's just this guy who's been around forever and believes TV is the only thing you could do. And I remember I was going through my plan. I was like, we can save money here, and we can save money there. And he said, hey, he goes, just don't lose money in the first year. He goes, don't make this thing so efficient that it strains the system and that you don't build the best model. And so I always tell people when they talk about in-housing, like, it can't solely be about the money, because if it is, you'll go with all the cheapest providers, and frankly, you'll get the worst service, and you won't actually succeed. So for us, it was, so think about the benefits of what you want from an in-house model. So like, first one I always talk about is just simple, like, goal alignment. Like, everybody's on the same page, everybody's on the same team, you're all goaled the same way, you're coworkers, you treat each other differently. I think clients do their best, and I've been guilty of this at times, about treating your agencies well, but there's times where that agency client thing, it just causes friction. But when you're coworkers and you're side by side and you see them dropping off their kids at the daycare, it just creates this different environment. The second thing is you speak the same language because you have access to the same reports. So I know for a fact that Mediacom could have done better had we just given them more reports. There's some reports we couldn't give them, so that's unfortunate because they weren't employees. And then there's some stuff that, frankly, like, oh, I forgot. Did you forward it to them? No, I didn't. Well, oh, great. Now what do we do? And so, like, it makes it easier when you're all together in the same sort of structure. And so that was a lot of it. There was also this belief of Pfizer wanting to say, look, we want to control a lot of our own destiny, and having hands-on keyboard is a function of that. I also believe there's a third part that's a little bit of a byproduct, which I think I might be setting you up for another question, but inadvertently. But I also think that there's a part of where you have in-house people in the building, your brand teams start to understand what this means, your analytics teams start to understand what search means, in some level of the weeds, and it makes them all better. Because when brand people understand all the media stuff, like, my job becomes easier. And I spent a career trying to make my job easier. And so, like, the more they buy in, the more they stop asking questions because they know the answer. I love all questions. Like, again, the easier my job is.
Yeah, I mean, you did just set me up for a question.
I did.
I was doing some internet sleuthing, and
Go past 99.
I saw a discussion that you had, and you talked about you can't be a great marketer, a great brand marketer, without understanding media and data. Yes. Why do you think that's so significant for marketers, but in particular pharma marketers?
Well, just for the record, like, she told me I said that, and I believe her, but I don't remember saying that at all.
You did. I have the receipts.
I know, I believe it. It's just like, I don't know, I'm a walking soundbite sometimes, but I forget because I have this ADD that I'm now medicated for, and it helps me out, but I don't remember saying that at all. And so again, it comes down to a fundamental belief of, like, when you're a brand marketer, like, you have thousands of jobs, and those jobs are hard. But the really one job is this: make a meaningful connection with the consumer. That's all you're trying to do. Get them to think about your product, resonate with them, buy it when it's on shelf. But that meaningful connection is what it's all about. How you get there is a whole bunch of other things. But that being said, like if you don't understand media, if you don't understand how data works, if you don't understand those things, you can't possibly be good at that because you can't figure out how to make a connection with a cancer patient, with someone who suffers from migraine, with someone who's in need of the vaccine, unless you understand fundamentally how to find that person. And gone are the days of where you could just do, I mean, I worked at a place where they would just mass reach because everybody qualified for their product, sort of, but it was trash. I mean, like the audiences we got were trash, but it was cheap, and it seemed to keep the company afloat for a while. So I think that's why it's so critical for marketers to know that. I think also, again, like if you become a brand marketer, well, I think there's probably tons of reasons, but I think one of them is because you do like the idea of making connections with consumers and having your message resonate with them. And if you don't understand how to do that, I just don't think you could be great at your job.
That makes total sense, yeah. So at Swoop, we leverage privacy-safe AI to help brands like Pfizer and Bayer find and target ideal patient and provider audiences. So I have to ask, how when going through this in-housing project, what was the vision for audience strategy and data?
Yeah, so this is a good question just around the fact of how we've constructed the model differently than what I had before. So we went with Publicis. Publicis owns Epsilon. We're doing Epsilon People Cloud, so like that's great. And so the idea now is we will still continue to work with that, and that's where we're going to build our audiences. But we are going to be augmenting partners like yourselves, like IQVIA, all the other ones that are good in the pharma space, to help sort of like piece that thing together. In prior lives, like we've owned the data providers ourselves, and we've built the audiences ourselves based on, again, marketer, tell me what you're trying to reach, and I could tell you, give me your segments, but not all segments are addressable. So like once you give me your segments, I can make them addressable. And so I think for us, it's continuing to work through that because for what it's worth, I mean, I think People Cloud is a good solution. It has its issues, but I do think we could fill in some of the blanks. I think also the key for us is not to swing too far to one side where we want to reach a specific consumer, but I think I'm concerned that at some point we might be focusing too narrowly. And because some of these patient populations are huge. So I always use like the same example over and over again because it's easy for me. I like easy examples. And also Lauren's here. Lauren's the brand manager she's a media strategist on Nurtec. Don't bother her. She doesn't have any money to give you. Just bother me. I have the money. You're going to thank me later for that one, Lauren. But if you so while that's great, like if you've bought Excedrin in the past 90 days, well, you probably suffer from migraines, so you probably are a right audience for Nurtec. And so it's those kind of like, it's not really, that's actually not a soft signal, but it's the things that are less than, went to WebMD or viewed a video. Like I'm trying to find other signals that we could put into our audience that actually speak to those like sort of fringe areas where you want to bring those people into the fold.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what you said earlier about like it being extremely important for brand marketers to understand that media and data so that they can tie and bridge their strategy with the right use of data.
Yep.
Yeah. So we joked a little bit that you're the industry. I'll call you the in-houser,
You
right?
said it.
Yep.
I didn't say that.
Well,
I've lost too many agency friends to say that again.
well,
Actually,
it's
they're
true.
quite nice to me still. I'm surprised, but it's okay.
So what are some things you've learned from your experience in in-housing? And second to that, what one thing would you not do again?
Oh gosh. All right, I'm just thinking about one time when I yelled at somebody, and that wasn't my best self. So it was warranted, though, just for the record, but it was just not the way to handle it. So the couple things I do differently. I do think, so I am not backing off at all on what we did at Bayer. Like that was a model that worked. It worked for specific reasons, and it's phenomenal. And like I love to see what Ryan and the team are doing there because it's great. Because you leave an organization, it's never going to fall apart. Just in case you're wondering, I've left a lot, and they never seem to fall apart as much as I think they will. But it's great to see them continue and grow. And you always think there might be some bump, but it doesn't happen. So, but my point is that is a model that worked under really like a set of circumstances that I haven't seen in a lot of other places. Again, decline, a little mismanagement, a little overcharging, just a lack of focus on digital. Like all those things came together in a perfect storm. That being said, it's really hard to do all that stuff. Like to own contracts and to pay bills and to when your agency overspends, it sucks. And you don't usually get the money back. Sometimes you can get a refund, but you don't. But like you overspend, and it's like I always said, like that's one of the things we'll get in trouble for. It's like if we overspend because like we're at the helm, and it's not like we could just say, oh, move that person off the business. Like that person works here. So I think. And I think this is where we'll land at Pfizer. And it's also like versions that I've seen in other places I've worked at with like owning a lot more of the internal strategy, I think is the most important piece. Like if you can develop the buying framework, the optimization framework, the partners that you use, the bare minimums that your brands have to like manage towards, or I guess adhere to have success in a campaign, like again, back to being an easy job, like it makes your job easier. So if 80% of your campaigns are set up in a way that are following the true fundamentals of how you do things well on media, like everything else sort of goes by, sort of like flows pretty much easy. And then there's always these, edge cases of like you have a specific audience or a product. So my point is, where I'm getting to the answer, is I think you have to own that part. Like I think you have to not be a facilitator of your agency, but you have to be the person in there who's saying, hey, we need to buy using these data providers. We need to optimize off of these KPIs. Like here's how often we refresh our data. Like you need to own those decisions in collaboration. Let me just say that. The hands-on thing, I'll take it because my boss and his boss said it in Ad Age, so I kind of have to do it. But I'm supportive of it. In case anybody's wondering, I am supportive of it. But I think that's the one that gives me the most pause over time of just like, it's a lot to take in. Again, we were very successful at Bear. I think year one we were competing against. I used to tell people when I would go on speaking, I was like, I'm competing against New Jersey Transit. Like, do you want to keep going to Manhattan and like go to an agency? Like, come to Bear. It's a beautiful campus and like you can work on a brand. But then year two was COVID and nobody wanted to move. So I think.
So is this your plug for
Yeah,
open
if
roles?
anybody wants to, because I took 95 and I haven't taken 95 in years and it's still 95. Like it's like someone said it's like me in therapy. It's like I'm just going to keep working on it, and no matter how inconvenient it is for everybody else. And that's like the true depiction of that.
You could see a horse on I-95.
You could see a horse on I-95.
Yeah.
You absolutely could. But yeah, so I think the hands-on thing is where I think I'd balance the piece of where like how much do you need to bring in. So I think a hybrid approach works really well because I do think you need some access to those agency people that do have some purview into other categories or other clients. I don't think it's as big as people say it is because I think the people working on your business are working on your business and they are not talking to anybody else. But I think at the senior levels you get access to some people because I did at times wonder, did we build this model and it's working so great and we just did it and there's nothing else we could do better? And I always worried that like, were we just believing what we believed because we were the ones saying it? And so like, it would have been nice to have like a devil's advocate, like on the agency side to say like, here's different providers, here's different things you can look at. And so that's I think where I always feel like a hybrid approach works really well.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like exposure to other partners or brand marketers would be helpful in this situation so you can kind of compare and contrast.
Yeah, and you can pull it off. It just takes a lot of work. I mean, it's not like people won't meet with me. I mean, it's outside of my charming personality. I mean, I work at a good brand, so like you'll meet. Not that charming, just joking. But you'll meet with me. But I do think there's some. But to know that a partner's out there that has something I need is a whole different story.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, I just didn't know what. Oh, like you do this. Like I could use that, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah. I need to switch gears and ask you a hard-hitting question, which is, if you had to save one pair of sneakers that you own, and that's the only pair that you can wear for the rest of your life, what pair would it be?
This is hard because I have a lot of good high tops that I would save, but like high tops don't work with everything. I'm a 50-year-old male, and like shorts and high tops don't work as much anymore. And by the way, I know you're like, he's 50. Oh my gosh, what's his skincare regime? I get it.
I think they're more focused on the hair.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it might be these because these are from Ted Lasso, and I love these. But it's probably my shattered backboards. They're orange, and if you've seen them, if you ever look up shattered backboard Nikes, they're like orange and black. They have like a glossy finish to them, and they look a little crinkly because they're a shattered backboard. So that's probably the ones. And then to answer the next question, I have 46 pairs of sneakers, and yes, I know it's obsessive, but like it is. That's it.
That's okay. 46. That's a lot.
46.
But yeah.
They all have their own little box in my closet.
Also, before we switch gears to Q&A, I do want to highlight all your great work with St. Baldrick's. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Shortly, yes. For the past 10, this is the 10th year. Yeah, for 10 years, my wife who does all the work. I just ask people for money and they magically give it to me because they're envious of my hair. That's my theory.
Which he'll shave.
I will. So basically I shave my hair every year for pediatric cancer. We live in a small town, New Hope, Pennsylvania, for those of you who are around here, right? Amy lives there. Hey, Tim. And so my wife got involved with this years ago. We've had people in our community that have had kids who have passed, including like my oldest daughter who lives in Chicago now. Her best friend, her brother died. Robert was, I think, 15. Ethan was like 12. No, Ethan was 15. Robert was 17. There was a kid from Doylestown we brought in who passed away just before the event. Dominic was 9. So it's become this giant community event. St. Baldrick spends all of their research, all their money against research for pediatric cures because, God forbid, your kid gets cancer, you're getting an adult treatment. So all they do is fund research projects around pediatric cures and treatments. Because if you get past pediatric stage and you survive, that adult medicine they put inside you is going to wreck your life for the future. Now, you're alive, and that's great, but it's hard. And so we got involved in that like 10 years ago, and it's been great. We've raised over like I think $1.6 million. Our goal every year is like $200,000 because $200,000 funds a research grant for St. Jude's or some other organization, and it's been great. And so we enjoyed. if I always say like somebody will remember me for something dumb, I'm sure, but like that's all I want to be remembered for. It's just like doing that thing. Someone's going to bring up the in-housing at my funeral, but I feel like my funeral's got this percentage of like friends of Lori's, bartenders, and then like industry people, and I'll know if you're really my friend if you make the trip to New Hope, because that's not easy for New York people, but yeah, it's great, and like I encourage everybody. You're in this industry, you're doing good things. You think it's really hard to like volunteer, and who has the time, but like you have an hour. Like you literally have an hour, or you have it one day a month. Like people think you have to go full bore into like, oh, I got to be a big brother. I got to be there every week. Like it's a 1 day commitment. And so like do that because it's so rewarding for yourself, and you're just passing that along. So anyway, I'll go back to being sarcastic in a minute.
I have a quick question. Who talks faster, Josh or me?
I know.
Sorry.
No,
Every single one of my peer reviews has said that. And still haven't changed. Are there other questions? There we go. Amy and I work together also at Razorfish.
And J&J.
And Jay, oh, that's right. I forgot we're
Yeah.
together.
The in-houser, I'm telling you.
I'm Amy Saunders. I'm from Novartis. I'm a fellow in-houser.
Yes,
So
you
I'm
are.
curious, to your point about goal alignment, how are you going to, in the new model, tackle integrated creative and media alignment excellence?
Boy, that's a good. By the way, there's two people here from Pfizer who want to know the answer to this question. I'm making this up, guys, as I go, just so you know. I do. So yes, like it's interesting because creative doesn't exactly live under my world, but it's so intrinsic to performance of media. Like I can't out target and outspend shitty creative. So what we've been talking about, there's no set structure, but we have been talking about like how do we. One of it is a lot of agency alignment, just around training, around what we're trying to do in terms of goals. So whether that's video, like we're also moving away from like, I always call them vanity metrics, like clicks and visits. Those are important, but they're really not as important as did you get a prescription? And so trying to find the right creative around that. So there is a lot around like if it's not driving that behavior, like that's where we have issues. And for us, it's a lot of education. So like, I don't know if I'm completely answering your question, Amy, but like, I do think for us, I know I am taking a more personal approach on like, hey, or not personal. I want to have a lot of oversight on like what we're doing creative. By the way, I'm not creative at all. So like I'm not saying like, wow, why does that person run through the field? Like I'm simply saying that like if we need to have a call to action, is it designed for sound off? Is it in the safe zone of Facebook's ad preview page? Like that's the stuff you got to pay attention to, because if not, it's just not going to work.
As Joseph Dressler at Adform, Josh, you brought up the idea of in-housing. You lose the ability to, from an agency to know like what are all the trends out there that are happening. Clearly, obviously, I'm sure your favorite part of your day is lots of emails and phone calls from sellers pitching you on ideas,
Yes.
right? I'm sure you wake up every morning, you're like,
Can't
can't
wait.
wait, right? It's going to be amazing. So how do you learn in that scenario what's going on in the marketplace?
Yeah, but by the way, like I say this with no like, I'm not saying this meanly. I think it's easier than people think. Because yes, I mean, even if you're not in a big brand where people are chasing you, there's always opportunities to go learn more and find more. Now it is hard though, because you do have a day job and it's very hard to figure out where to try to figure out Google's sandbox. Like if you do that and you haven't lost 2 days of your life, like let me know, because I did. I think there's a little bit of trying to like bring in the right partners. So, and that is also, by the way, also where I leverage my agency. Now, let me be clear. I don't let my agency tell me who I can and can't meet with, and they wouldn't. But like, if there's a partner I want to meet with, but I know Publicis has something like, well, we sort of do that. Like, great. I still want to meet with them because I still want to stay abreast of things. We had a partner at Bayer. I forget which one it was. I think it was IAS. Or Double, I don't know, whichever one we didn't use. And they came to us after we in-housed and said they had created this solution that like we asked for. And I was like, well, we already signed with IAS. So maybe it was Double Verify. And they were like, what? Like Mediacom didn't tell you about this? And I was like, nope. And they were like, we had it 6 months ago. I was like, oh. I was like, to be a little bit blunt, like I was like, hey, I'm here. Like you should have just called me. And so I think that's like part of it also. Is like just knowing if people reach out to you, like picking out the right ones. Did I answer that? All right, I tried.
Thank you, Josh. Jealous of the hair, fellow sneakerhead collector as well. Nobody asked, but Travis Scott fragments.
That's
are
impressive.
mine.
Yeah, I've never wanted Travis Scott.
Can you speak to? My name is Anderson. I work at Team Snap. One of the things that is always intriguing to me is when you think about environments or partners that are unexpected that drive value. Can you speak to anyone where you surprisingly found a value in a partnership that you didn't necessarily see coming?
Man, that's a really good question. And I'm sure there's an answer. So here's the deal. I'm gonna be here all day. I have some meetings that I could take. But like, if I can't answer it now, I'll come up with something. I feel like if I could give an answer, not just to make up words, like I do feel like there's some data, like more in the data space, where I just didn't think that was actually gonna find the audience we looked at. And then we did work with a company that was doing like not dynamic creative, but just like able to create creative at scale, but not using technology per se. And I forget the name of the company now, so they didn't resonate that well. But like those are little surprises. I mean, I guess the point is this: Facebook, Google, all the other big partners, like they're great, but there's also other partners that perform. And I have found that throughout my career that there are little ones in there and even mid-sized ones that do well. But I think if I was able to remember things, I'd probably say someone in the data probably surprised me at some point. Is that it? We're done. Done?
We are
We're
done.
Thank you.
Yeah.